Hello, this is Cotton Soups and welcome back to another Loomian Legacy HTUC video. And today's video is on Joltooth. Joltooth is one of the better fossil Loomians inside of this game, so let's talk about that. In today's video, you'll be learning how to use and counter Joltooth, from counters and checks to sets, as well as the teammates Joltooth can run, and of course the weaknesses, resistances, and the roles Joltooth can play. This video has everything you need to know on how to use and counter Joltooth. So the first thing you should know about Joltooth is the role that Joltooth plays, and this is of course answered by its base stats. Its base stats are pretty simple, with the fact that it only has really bad stuff with its range attack and speed. 69 speed, yes, the funny number, is actually pretty good in all hindsight, but of course some walls that cannot speed this speed tier, like Iguana and Stratosaur, which is not ideal, and 36 range attack is of course pretty low. You do have a decent melee defense stat and range defense stat of 84 and 87 respectively. This is of course pretty good for an offensive Loomian, and for any Loomian in general. It is really comparable to some other stuff, which is pretty good for Joltooth. And the main stuff, its HP, energy, and melee attack are all pretty high for Joltooth. Its HP stat of 94 paired with its defenses makes Joltooth a pretty good Loomian with natural bulk. On top of that, it has a really good energy stat of 89, letting Joltooth get up to 250 very easily, and 126 melee attack is of course contending for one of the highest in the game. And to give you an example, even though Joltooth cannot run valuable personalities, this is a lot stronger, or rather 1 point stronger than a very brawny Borak. So what role does Joltooth play? Well, it's gonna be a strong, bulky wall breaker. Of course, Joltooth doesn't have the speed here to sweep teams, but it is strong enough and it is bulky enough to be a wall breaker. Usually you'd want to use Joltooth in more bulkier teams that can help Joltooth out, because of course it's going to be switching in a lot, and if you're using Joltooth in like a speed hyper offense type team, Joltooth isn't going to be providing the best with its low speed tier, and of course not really fitting the hyper offense vibe. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Joltooth's resistances and weaknesses, so let's get along with that. Joltooth's typing of Ancient and Electric is pretty decent because of the Ancient typing. You have 3 weaknesses to Light, Earth, and Ancient. Light type moves come from stuff like Phage Knot, Luminami, Namare, and Valkyrie. Earth type move users from Ferroglyph to Tyrex, Setamars, Borak. Ancient type moves coming from stuff like Obsidian, other Joltooths, Obsidians, and of course Zulongs, so yeah, you do have to watch out for those. However, you do have 4 resistances to Fire, Plant, Air, and Spirit. Plant types are not really common, only Totab is pretty common. Fire types like Chartiki and Pyrelin are some good stuff to switch in on if you can. Air types like Zeppelin, Wintrix, Stratosaur, and Namare are some stuff you can switch in on, but probably not for the best because some do hit you super effectively. And Spirit types like Harvestech, Vesperatu, and Revenine are some good stuff to switch in on if you do not have any other switch-ins. And you do have 1 major resistance to Electric. Electric type move users like Phage Knot, other Joltooths, Elophages, and Zulongs are some stuff you can't switch in. So let's get along with Joltooth sets. So yeah, let's get along with that. Joltooth's wall breaker set is pretty simple. You want the ability Ambush because will overcharge while being pretty decent. It's not really the best compared to Ambush because Ambush does a lot more consistent damage with the wall breaking aspect. So yeah, and the Primal Slash, Bulk Up, Thunderclap, and Bamboozle will be your main 4 moves. You can of course run some other moves like Dodge and Thunder Crash, but I just prefer these moves because these moves are a lot more consistent. You can of course replace Bulk Up out of all of these because Joltooth is going to be ambushing a lot and not really staying in the battle, but you can choose to run Bulk Up if you want. Bamboozle is mainly for the light types that can switch in on your Primal Slash, and the plant types that can switch in on your Thunderclap. Primal Slash and Thunderclap are your main stab moves. And Personality will be Brawny with the Clumsy personality or without it. Of course, you want pure Brawny as much as possible, but if you can't help it, just run Clumsy if you really want to. And the item of choice will be the Choice of Shell or Essence. This is so you can boost one of your Joltooth's moves, which in all honesty is pretty good. And Power Cups can be the last option. Of course, Joltooth does have the energy stat, but personally I wouldn't really run it and save it for another Loomian that kinda needs it, so yeah. And the TPs, 12 energy lets you get up to 250, which I'm pretty sure will let you use 5 Thunderclaps or Primal Slashes and a bulk up. 96 speed is so we can outspeed a 0 speed non-sluggish Stratosaurus, and 192 HP is so we can, well, it's not really for anything, it's just leftovers. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Joltooth's counters and checks as well as its teammates, so let's get along with that. So generally, counters and checks to Joltooth are pretty easy. You just want to hit Joltooth super effectively, and since its coverage is too dangerous, most of the time you're not really going to be switching in on it with offensive stuff. Stuff like Zulong, Valkyrie to Clips, Namare, and Phagenot with their super effective moves respectively. Like Valkyrie, Namare to Clips have their light type moves. Zulong obviously has that ancient move, and Phagenot, while not being the best, it is a really good Loomian in terms of tanking melee hits. So if you can tank a hit from an ambushed Joltooth, then switch out using Flash and Flee, which is obviously pretty good. And defensive counters and checks to Joltooth, they're pretty simple as well. You want to run stuff that can hit it super effectively, but this time there are some answers that can be immune or resist most of Joltooth's moves. These guys being basically melee or ranged walls like Cetomars, Tyrex, Obsidian, Phagenot again, and Aleguana. Aleguana is of course getting hit super effectively by Bamboozle, so it's not always the best to switch in. Cetomars and Tyrex, however, are probably one of the better ones considering they are not air types, but they are both earth types, which is pretty good. And Tyrex overall is a pretty strong Loomian on its own. And of course, Phagenot and Obsidian, they have high melee defenses. And of course, if you did not know, I'm pretty sure an Obsidian is a 3-hit KO or a 4-hit KO on an ambushed Joltooth without a shell, so that's pretty good. But you don't really have to run Obsidian when you can run these guys, so yeah. And some offensive teammates to Joltooth, these are also pretty simple as well. You want to run stuff that can hit those walls super effectively, like Totab, Viscarna, C.B.O, Samurai, and Eclipse. Eclipse, while not being able to hit most of them except Aleguana super effectively, it is of course being able to be immune to light, which is pretty good. Totab is also being able to be immune to light and practically deals with the electric and earth types really well, as well as Viscarna also being a pretty good stop to earth types, and Samurai also being able to hit everything super effectively in the defensive counters and checks, I'm pretty sure, and C.B.O also being like Totab but a little bit worse considering that C.B.O can't really hit as hard as Totab like consistently, and of course it is pretty hard to switch in. So defensive teammates to Joltooth are also simple as well. You want to run stuff that will help Joltooth out in terms of offensive stuff and letting it in the battle. Stuff like Your Snack and Namare are good pivots because, well, they cover Joltooth's weaknesses pretty well, especially Namare. So yeah, and Stratosaur, Cetomars, and Barblast are walls that you can pick over pretty much any other wall. You can run a lot of walls with Joltooth. Generally, Joltooth isn't really the best with synergizing with defensive walls, so yeah. With that out of the way, let's talk about Joltooth's conclusion and my thoughts on it. So yeah. So overall, I think Joltooth is a pretty good Loomian. I think it's one of the better fossil Loomians, if not the best. Well, and that's mainly because there's not a lot of competition in the first place. I mean, a really close contender can be Infernix, but yeah, Joltooth overall is a pretty good Loomian because it can break a lot of walls with potential. but it's not really reaching that potential because most people really don't have it and don't have the stuff that will make Joltooth good. And overall, the meta is not really kind to it because of earth types like Tyrex and Pseudomars. So yeah, let me know what you thought of the video down below, and of course, like the video if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're into these kind of videos. I make more of these videos, or planning to make more soon, so yeah. And of course, remember, join the Discord, and Zulong is still a dumpster.